Good morning, everyone. My name is Kadek Diva Sapitri, and today I will present a topic about quadratic function. In this presentation, we will learn what a quadratic function is, it, it is general form, the characteristic of its graph, how to determine its intercept and vertex, and how to find its root using the factoring method. So, let's begin our discussion. Okay. Before learning the formula, let's first understanding the meaning of quadratic function. A quadratic function is a polynomial function whose highest exponent of the variable is 2. Unlike a linear function, which form a straight line, the graph of a quadratic function is always a parabola. Quadratic functions are widely used in mathematics, physics, engineering, and many real-life applications. Now, let's look at general form of quadratic function. A quadratic function can be written as fx equal ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. In this equation, a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant term. This function can also be written as y equal ax squared plus bx plus c, or using function notation fx. The value of a is very important because it determines the shape and direction of the parabola. Next is shape of the parabola. So the shape of a quadratic graph depends on the value of a. If a positive, the parabola open upward, forming a U-shaped curve. On the other hand, if a is negative, the parabola open downward, forming an upside down U shape. Therefore, by simply looking at the sign of a, we can immediately determine the direction of the parabola. The next is y-intercept. So, next, let's discuss the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. In the coordinate function, the y-intercept is determined by the constant c. Therefore, the coordinate of the y-intercept always 0, c, or 0, c. For example, if c equals 5, then the graph crosses the y-axis at the point 0, 5. Okay, next is extremum point. Now let's learn about extremum point, also called the vertex of the parabola. The vertex is the highest point of the graph if the parabola open downward. It is the lowest point if the parabola open upward. To determine the x coordinate of the vertex, we use the formula x equal negative b divided by 2. After finding the x coordinate, we substitute into the quadratic function to calculate the y coordinate. Together, this coordinate gives us the vertex of the parabola. Next is discriminant value. Another important concept is the discriminant. The discriminant is calculated using the formula this, and the discriminant tells us how many real roots a quadratic equation has. If d is greater than 0, the quadratic equation has two different real roots. If d equals 0, it has repeated real root, one real root. If d is less than 0, it has no real root, which means the graph does not intersect the x-axis. Also, when a is positive and D is less than 0, the entire graph lies above the x-axis, and A is negative and D is less than 0, the entire graph lies below the x-axis. Next is factoring method. Now let's discuss one method for finding the root of quadratic function. This method is called the factoring method. So if the coefficient equal a equal 1, we can factoring the quadratic expression into two binomials. After factoring, we set each factor equal to 0. Then we solve each equation to obtain the value of x, which are called the roots of or x-intercept of the quadratic function. Next is example problem. Let's try an example. We are given the quadratic function fx equal x squared plus 7x plus 10. Our task is determine the characteristic of the graph and its intercept. To solve this problem, we identify the value of a, b, and c. Okay, from the equation fx equal x squared plus 7x plus 10, we obtain a equal 1, b equal 7, and c equal 10. These values will help us determine the graph characteristic and value and calculate the determinant. Okay, next is we calculate the determinant. So substituting 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 the value into the for sorry, substituting the value into the formula give us okay sorry. Next we calculate the determinant. Substituting wait, next next we calculate the determinant. Substituting the values into the formula gives us t equal 40 90 minus 40, which equal 9. Since t is greater than 0, the quadratic equation has two distinct real roots. Because a is positive, the parabola upward upward, therefore the graph intersects the x-axis at two different points. Okay. Next, we calculate the determinant. Substituting the value into the formula gives us d equal 49 minus 40, which equal 9. Since d is greater than 0, the quadratic equation has two distinct real roots. Because a is positive, the parabola open upward. Therefore, the graph intersects the x-axis at two different points. Next is now let's determine the root using the factoring method. The quadratic function can be factored as x plus 5 times x plus 2 equals 0. Setting each factor equal to 0 gives us x equal negative 5 or x equal negative 2. Therefore, the graph intersects the x-axis at the point negative 5 and negative 2. This is called the x-intercept of the quadratic function. Okay, that brings us to the end of this presentation. Today we'll learn the definition of a quadratic function, its general form, the shape of its graph, the y-intercept, the vertex or extremum point, the discriminant, and the factoring method for finding its root. Understanding this concept is very important because quadratic functions are fundamental topic in mathematics and are widely applied in many fields. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this presentation has helped you understanding quadratic function more clearly. Have a wonderful day and